These images will forever be burned into the consciousness of America. This is Heather Heyer. She was the victim of a terrorist attack this past weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia. The ostensible reason for the Unite the Right rally was to protest against the removal of a Robert E. Lee statue from a park there in Charlottesville. City of Charlottesville has been attempting to remove this statue, amongst others, for about a year, and a group of people organized to attempt to prevent that and to combat that, including Richard Spencer, the known white nationalist, Jason Kessler, the man who actually organized the rally, and these are the scenes that were the result of that organization. These are white supremacists and racists and Nazis who are clashing with people there to oppose their racism, white supremacy, and Nazism. This young man is DeAndre Harris. He was nearly beaten to death by a mob of racists and white supremacists. There is a police force right around the corner from this garage, and not one police person intervened in that case. This is an image of a white supremacist slamming his car into a group of anti-fascist protesters. One of them died. Her name was Heather Heyer. This is the response of the President of the United States 3 days later.
I've condemned neo-Nazis. I've condemned many different groups, but not all of those people were neo-Nazis, believe me. Not all of those people were white supremacists by any stretch. Those people were also there because they wanted to protest the taking down of a statue, Robert E. Lee. So, excuse me, and you take a look at some of the groups and you see, and you know it if you were honest reporters, which in many cases you're not, but many of those people were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. So, this week it's Robert E. Lee. I noticed that Stonewall Jackson's coming down. I wonder, is it George Washington next week? And is it Thomas Jefferson the week after? You know, you really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
Trump is basically condemning everyone except for the white supremacists, Nazis, and racists who organized this rally and committed this violence. Stonewall Jackson's great-grandchildren are also coming out and saying that they want the statue of Stonewall Jackson removed. Robert E. Lee himself was against the very idea of Confederate monuments and statues directly after the war, right after the war. What you're seeing here is the Arizona State Capitol, where we have a memorial to Arizona Confederate troops, erected, interestingly, in 1961. One of the dirty little secrets of the Protect the Monuments crowd is that most of the monuments were erected during the civil rights movement of the 60s. A great deal of them were also erected during the Jim Crow South, during the era of forced sharecropping, which is basically another way of having slaves. Now, what you're about to see here are some of the other monuments and memorials at the Capitol. Arizona's Pioneer Women. The Bushmasters, that's an infantry group. There's the Bushmasters. The Arizona Workers Memorial, El Pasaje. We choose what we glorify. This being Arizona, of course, we do have the 10 Commandments right outside the Arizona Capitol. This has been a source of great controversy, but we won't go there right now.
Seems like an odd choice, doesn't it?
This statue at the Capitol is dedicated to and in honor of Navajo code talkers, a group of Marines who used their knowledge of obscure languages to fool the Germans. This memorial for veterans of all American wars is not at the Capitol, it's at a local Phoenix cemetery. Always worth keeping in mind that hundreds of thousands of Americans perished fighting Nazis and fighting to end slavery. The idea that these monuments have nothing to do with racism is absurd. Here's a great example of why. This is the Jefferson Davis Highway, Highway number 70. If you leave Phoenix and you go east, you pass Mesa, you will eventually get to the Jefferson Davis Highway. Now, my father used to be a racist. He's not anymore. When I told him that there was a Jefferson Davis Highway in Arizona, he said, you know, that's like having a highway called the Adolf Hitler Highway or the Joseph Goebbels Highway. Someone apparently agreed with that characterization and went and destroyed the Jefferson Davis Monument as I was working on editing this video. That is what it looks like right now. These images are from Picacho Peak. There was a battle at Picacho Peak, April 15th, 1862. Arizona Territory was, quote unquote, occupied by the Confederacy for a brief amount of time. And this crazy little skirmish breaks out at Picacho Peak. So this monument is actually interesting in a way because it's talking about actual history. But we need not turn to the lost cause scenario to explain the Confederacy and what it thought it was fighting for. We can turn to the Confederates. Confederate Vice President Alexander Stephens famously got up in 1861 and gave what is now known as the Cornerstone Speech, in which he infamously said, "Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite ideas. Its foundations are laid. Its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world based upon this great physical, philosophical, and moral truth. This truth has been slow in the process of its development, like all other truths in the various departments of science," unquote. The question for Arizona now and for every other state in this union is, what do we glorify? How do we deal with our racist, white supremacist past? And what kind of future are we going to lay out for ourselves right now?